Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and today, the title I'm sure says something like The Mandalorian versus Rise of Skywalker, because I'd like to put something pithy there, but God, Rise of Skywalker is already a lot of words.
It's just new Star Wars! Woo!
Yeah, woo and
No, not woo. Woo all. So, we are covering both the entire series of The Mandalorian, now that it's out, and the newest episode of the Star Wars saga movies, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. You heard the little stutter there as I tried to remember what number it was. But, so, let's do a spoiler review for both of us.
And in that sense, I mean, like, I'm probably going to ultimately give fewer spoilers for The Mandalorian than I am for Rise of Skywalker in general through this whole podcast.
I will probably give a fair amount of spoilers for both, so, just be wary.
Yeah. Spoiler-free review. If you like Star Wars, I would see Rise of Skywalker on the big screen. If you're a casual fan or a certain type of person, you will love it. Mandalorian, watch it. Why haven't you already watched it?
I think Rise of Skywalker is probably not the best Star Wars movie, but it may be the most Star Wars movie, and I think that's probably, I don't know if that's a compliment. I really, really loved it. And I think you should watch it on the big screen if you like Star Wars. If you are iffy on Star Wars, or it's just something you keep up with because your friends like it or whatever, just give it a pass. You're not going to have a good time.
I don't know, man. Like, some casual fans that I've been able to see really like the stupid shit.
There's a lot of stupid shit. That's a little bit of a spoiler.
I don't know. Are you on the internet? Because I was off of social media. To the point that today I was like, man, I miss my friends, Billy, if you're listening. You're not, but he used to be on the podcast. Y'all remember him. And I'm like, oh, wait, that's only because I've been off of social media for basically half of December.
Just trying not to get spoilers for this. And you managed it for once.
I had some small spoilers, but, like, the first few minutes of the movie were, felt like spoilers.
To be honest with you, I had spoilers for most of it. So, I think maybe that maybe helped me enjoy the movie, because I had time for, like, a week and change to just really internalize all the dumb shit that was about to happen and get over it.
Almost a week.
So that I could just enjoy the ride when I watched the movie.
It's been almost a week for me. And I need you to know, listener, spoiler-free thing is over, by the way. I'm not going to just jump into shit and be like, Qui-Gon comes back and lightsabers Kylo Ren through the butt or something. God, might have been better. I rewatched this movie, and there are parts of this movie I really like. Like, it's Aquaman to the nth degree. There are some parts of this movie that are really phenomenal. And then there's the rest of the movie. And, like, I was so upset about that I woke up mad the next day. I can't remember anything ever making me feel that way. That wasn't, like, something I was, like, real life upset about as an edgy teen.
I gotta tell you, that might mean it's really good. Art is supposed to provoke emotion, and it sure fucking did.
Get the fucking hence. Let's take a breather. I don't want to overreact too much.
Although it's fun.
There's a good preview there for you. Let's take a breather. The Mandalorian.
Yeah, let's talk about The Mandalorian. Now, This podcast might run a little long, because I don't just want to talk about this show generally. Each episode is very stylistically unique.
Yes.
And so I kind of want to go over them all.
The Mandalorian is my favorite anime.
It is a really good series. The Mandalorian might be the best Star Wars movie.
It might be. Mandalorian's amazing.
So, here's the thing. It does a really great job of understanding what makes Star Wars good, and not just repeating it or trying to mindlessly subvert it, but synthesize it into something that's new and yet still feels like Star Wars in a way that none of the sequel movies have managed.
I have a great thing to point out about specifically the Force. Now, those of you who are into the old expanded universe know that sometimes, off in the annals of bookery, the Force does some wacky bullshit.
And even those who, aren't that up to it, who maybe have only dipped their toe into the expanded universe in the vein of, like, the Knights of the Republic games, or the Force Unleashed, or maybe even the Clone Wars series, know that sometimes the Force does some wacky shit.
I feel in those places the Force is, like, still... It has rules. And they're not, like, written rules, but there's a general sort of amoeba-like barrier around what can the Force do.
See, I've never felt that way.
I mean, like, a soft barrier.
It's magic. It's essentially magic. It does what it wants.
Sure, but, like... There's a difference between, like Harry Potter magic and the Force. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The Force is very focused around, like... mostly subtle effects, and the big flashy shit is usually dark side stuff.
Right. A lot of it is manipulation, up to and including mental manipulation. But stuff is here, you can fuck with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the expanded universe stuff, the bigger stuff, goes a little wild. And I feel like the stuff in the end of Skywalker, while it's perhaps logical...
Yeah, it makes... No, it doesn't. I was going to say it makes sense.
Let me try that again. While it's a conclusion, I understand why it was drawn. Maybe should not have been your first 6 instincts to go with.
I understand why it's there.
Whereas there are 2 things in The Mandalorian where the Force is used in a way I haven't seen it used before personally. Well, one that I've seen a lot, but in expanded universe stuff, not main series stuff. And the other one, I haven't seen before.
Really?
Yeah, like the fire control thing. You and I had a conversation about that.
We had a conversation that before he saw the last episode of The Mandalorian, and he was like, "Do you think the Force can hold back fire?" And I had to be all like, "I don't see why it couldn't."
No, he was real good about it. He's pretending like he was being a stooge, but no, he was very. It's possible, I think. I don't see why not. And I'm like, all right, sounds good. But that makes sense. Like that's why I even asked you. I was like, well, that seems reasonable. Is there any reason why it couldn't? And a lot of people, as I understand, have been upset about the healing in Rise of Skywalker, which is fucking stupid. Because
that's completely banal for shit.
Where the hell have you been?
Yeah, okay, so there wasn't an example of it in the original trilogy. There's a lot more Star Wars than that.
Sure.
There's a lot more Star Wars than that. I'm sorry you weren't up on the homework.
But to tell you what, nobody's complaining about Baby Yoda healing fucking Handshake Man.
No.
Carl Weathers.
You know why? You know why? Because The Mandalorian might be the best Star Wars movie.
Right, because it does it well and it's not weird. It takes
stuff that... It understands the underpinnings of why people love Star Wars in a way that none of the sequel movies, even though I really like all of them and love 2 of them, they don't understand.
There's a fundamental creative thing, and I think it is that when George Lucas made the original trilogy, they were samurai westerns.
They were samurai westerns mixed with pulp cereals.
Yeah, and The
Mandalorian is a pulp cereal samurai western. They get it.
Like a lot of media even just calls it a western, like classifies its genre as western.
Yeah, it is a pulp cereal fantasy sci-fi western. It is Star Wars.
Whereas
in almost its distilled form.
Whereas the prequel trilogy was it was a Star Wars. It wasn't like...
Yeah, it was. That's the thing. None of the trilogies, none of the main series movies since like the original trilogy have captured that same feel. They're not necessarily bad for that, but it is a different feel because the prequel trilogies they weren't samurai western serials. They were an entirely different. There's an entirely different structural chassis underneath with a Star Wars layer put on top. So it feels different. It doesn't feel like Star Wars, even though it sure fucking looks like Star Wars.
I think it reclassified what a Star Wars is.
Yeah, a Star War is different.
And I would say that the new trilogy...
it fucked the timeline up in a lot of ways.
I would say the new trilogy is a great Xerox of that concept, of the prequel trilogy concept.
Basically, I think the new series, all 3 movies of the new trilogy, of the sequel trilogy, understand they're not good at synthesizing Star Wars. They're good at understanding why people like Star Wars and then doing that again, or then going, that's why people like Star Wars, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do whatever the opposite of that is. Again, that's not necessarily a bad decision.
But that's the difference. That's the difference between the sequel trilogy and The Mandalorian, is that the sequel trilogy is a synthesized Star Wars. It is the replicator on the Enterprise making your Earl Grey hot, and it's not quite the same, but it's still pretty good. It hits all the notes of what an Earl Grey is, compared to a tea artisan making brand new fucking tea.
Whereas fucking Jon Favreau grew the leaves and fucking harvested them by hand and pulled the water from a mountain spring that he had to climb to get to.
And even before all that, he looked at George Lucas, and George Lucas went, "Yeah, that's fine."
I want to talk about The Mandalorian episode by episode because it fucking deserves it.
Let's not waste time then. Let's go ahead and go into that, and then I can bitch about Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. All right, so Chapter 1, The Mandalorian. We don't need to go plot beat by plot beat. No. I don't feel like I want to spoil the whole plot. Watch the goddamn show.
I really like the Ugnaught. Queel, I believe his name is. And it was so awesome to see an IG unit in action.
And it moved like an IG unit.
It
didn't move like a person.
It did exactly what you wanted.
And it was a great way to introduce the character of the Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. He was badass, but not invincible. He was, cool at what he does, but he can get outsmarted. He can get overpowered if he's caught off guard. It sets him up as a badass, but not overpowered protagonist, and thus more interesting.
Yeah.
Chapter 2, The Child, after the big surprising reveal of, this isn't a spoiler, you've been on the internet, the Yoda species baby.
I went on I knew this podcast was coming for a while now. We've gone up and down on what we were doing this week, but I was going to open with you may be able to see The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Very cheap to get, perfectly reasonable. Lots of other great stuff to watch on there. Or you can see it frame by frame on any social media feed.
So I like this episode. I don't like it quite as much as the first one. It's not quite as tight.
No, I would say it might be the weakest episode in the season. That or the next one.
It or fourth. For me, episode 3 is the best episode.
Well, see, I don't remember them all in order.
That's fair. I do. So
it's a talent you have, or a burden you must carry.
It's both. It's not bad. There's little bits of world building, like what the Jawas eventually want in exchange for the things they have taken.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this episode. No, this one was good. 3. You're absolutely right. 3's the weaker one. Even though it's got an awesome ending, I think overall 3's a weaker episode. I
can understand that opinion.
The Jawas and their profound desire. Now I want a Jeff Goldblum episode on Jawas.
But it does a lot of really great world building, and it sets up a lot of really great stuff later in the series.
Yes, I agree.
But in and of itself is probably one of the weaker episodes. It's still good. None of these episodes are bad. There are no bad episodes of The Mandalorian.
No, I don't think so.
It's just, instead of being an A+, S rank fucking masterpiece, it's like a B+. It's great, but not amazing. The next one is Chapter 3, The Sin.
Right.
Where the Mandalorian delivers his cargo, and he then ultimately decides that it's not going to go down like that.
Now, this was a lot of cool fight scenes, but I just wasn't...
For me, I love this episode because a lot of it, the majority of it is actually very low energy.
Yeah, that
there's a big bombastic ending, but I love it because it is the emotional core of the rest of the series.
It's important. It's obviously part of the plot, but it's... I don't want to say predictable, but I get what's going on so early, and they take as long as they do to get there that I'm like, okay, all right, okay.
Yes, you've seen many things.
Sure, and that's not a sin of the show. Well, it's called The Sin.
Hey.
And I don't think I'm not trying to say it's a bad episode or anything. I don't. It's not. It didn't grab me by the eyes and go ugh, like the rest of the series did.
That's absolutely fair. For me, the previous episode was that. Episode 4 is called The Sanctuary. It's Seven Samurai.
I liked it.
The Mandalorian and fucking Cara Dune, a.k.a. the most hard-ass woman in the galaxy. I love
awesome.
her.
Yeah, she's great.
We stand a queen in this household. It is an absolutely archetypal story. There's been episodes of pretty much anything that deals with any kind of samurai or Eastern flair. Up to and including many anime, not all, because, they probably get tired of it eventually. And almost all samurai-inspired in any way movies or series will eventually get around to a Seven Samurai.
Yes.
This is the Mandalorians. They do a good job with it. They do a great job with it. They introduce very interesting characters. They introduce very interesting stuff that comes up later. And notably, I love this episode because it does a lot of work to remind people who may have recently watched Return of the Jedi that the Empire is supposed to be scary and their equipment is supposed to be fucking scary to have to deal with in the way that, like, Rogue One does and a lot of other things. Basically, every time there's an Imperial around and there isn't a Jedi around, you're fucked.
I liked them making an ATST the villain.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It just goes a long way to establishing that there's a reason the Empire was in fucking charge for, 20 years or so, for as long as they existed.
Eventually there was a bigger fish.
Yep, pretty much. There's always a bigger fish.
There is. Episode 5?
Episode 5 is The Gunslinger.
This was cool.
This was just a cool episode.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't so much impact on later episodes, with the exception of teaching the Mandalorian some lessons he needed to learn, and foreshadowing something that comes up later in the series. But there's a cool cameo by the lady who plays May in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's pretty great.
There's a cool cameo from Princess Carolyn.
That's true.
Yeah. Not in cat form, though.
Which is the Star Wars it could have been. You needed to clarify.
Yeah, I suppose I did, didn't I? What if I missed a pink cat in the bar? Maybe I did. You don't know.
Maybe.
Episode 6.
Episode 6, The Prisoner. This one's a weird one. I love it, but it's a weird one. It is a little tiny, mini arc contained into itself that I assume is laying groundwork for next season.
This was the prison ship one?
Yeah, the prison ship.
I
love it. I love all the characters introduced into it. They're played by some of my favorite actors.
This episode was an episode of an anime.
Yeah, it was weird and it was a serial. It was an Old Republic serial.
Yeah, but it felt like the cinematography, a lot of the choices made in the way the action flowed looked like the kind of anime I watched in the 90s and 2000s. This was some Go-Go 13 shit.
Yeah, you're absolutely not wrong.
And I loved it. It was great to see the live action without, the adaptation problems.
It was much more contained, and I don't just mean that because most of it takes place on a spaceship, than some of the other episodes, but it's really fun. It has a lot of fun characters. It played by people you will recognize, or maybe you won't. Sport didn't recognize half of them.
No, I didn't.
I had this guy's this person, and this guy's this person.
Which is a funny thing because...
How you didn't recognize Clancy Brown is fucking beyond.
I notice his voice everywhere. Well, anytime he does any role.
He says 3 words, but also his face is Clancy Brown's face.
I don't know. There was enough makeup on him that, he just looked like swole Deveronian.
He looked like a Deveronian. A big one. And then... Chapter 7 and Chapter 8 I kind of want to talk about together because they're a two-parter. And they clearly, whereas the previous episodes, there's kind of a break. Yeah. And then they get on the ship and they fly away. Some amount of time passes, next episode.
Right.
7 and 8 are a two-parter, and they're very tightly wound together, so I kind of want to discuss them together.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, Episode 7 is Mando getting the band back together. He goes around to all the cool people who weren't assholes who he met throughout his travels through the rest of the series and gets them all together to go fuck up the people who are chasing him and his son. And and it goes well until it doesn't.
All's well that ends well, I suppose.
Yep.
There was some good shit here. There was great acting. I just like all these characters.
Carl Weathers, by the way, I fucking love him in this series. We haven't mentioned it much, but
this series was unnecessary.
Well, no, I love Carl Weathers in general, but he's giving a specifically Star Wars as fuck performance.
I really like his character
with the way he talks and the way he acts.
Yeah,
and it's just everything about his performance is so Star Wars. I love it.
Honestly, he disappeared into this role. Like, I didn't realize he was Carl Weathers at first, and that's Carl Weathers.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like in makeup. It's just Carl Weathers in a Star Wars jacket. But I didn't see him and go, Carl Weathers. Like I did when Bill fucking Burr shows up. I just go, oh, it's Bill Burr.
Every time.
I know, buddy.
He's the greatest little hobbit.
Bill Burr Baggins. I do it too. I'm sure he hates it.
Oh, I hope so.
And then we get the arrival of Moff Gideon at the end of episode 7.
Great casting choice, by the way.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the future of Moff Gideon.
Yeah. I like your pet theory there. I think it sounds plausible. Stamp it with the Mythbuster stamp. Plausible.
But and then there's a big old fight scene after. Episode 8 actually opens with a really funny comedy sequence
with more Saturday Night Live alumni. It was kind of a weird selection of casting.
Not really, given who's running the show. It's basically just a bunch of people who are Jon Favreau's friends.
Yeah, just still, you don't expect to see a new Star Wars series. Oh yeah, who's the characters in the opening? Well, we got Pedro Pascal and Horatio Sands.
Speaking of, it's fun. It's a big punch up to send things off with a very prominent like emotional payoff, like a couple different ones, and it's just a really good finale to the season that makes me really want more episodes of The Mandalorian. I'll have to wait until next fucking fall. Come on, guys.
This is the burden of binge watch TV.
I didn't binge watch it. They didn't let me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now that we have to go back to regular TV, it's like everything is ashes in your mouth.
I have to wait week by week with these.
There was an episode 8 thing that you wanted to call me out on / celebrate about the series. I'm not going to deny you the opportunity.
I genuinely don't remember what you're talking about. I've had a very long day.
Yeah, I believe you called me a tittering Japanese schoolgirl.
What?
When spoilers, like we said, when the IG unit is performing surgeries on Mando.
Oh god, I totally forgot this. All right. So, throughout the whole series until episode 8, according to the Mandalorian Creed, Mandalorians never take off their helmet in front of other people. Now, they could have easily had Pedro Pascal take off his helmet a bunch in scenes where he's supposed to be alone. To get that shiny face time that actors want for good reasons, it makes it easier for them to get cast and shit in the future. I'm not saying that's a bad instinct. But he didn't. The fucker was committed. He has his helmet on in the cast photo. But for one episode, for an emotional payoff of a C storyline they've had going throughout the whole series, he takes his helmet off. And this fucking Japanese schoolgirl ass motherfucker averts his eyes and puts his hand up to the screen like, no, this is shameful, I will not look.
My favorite part is how you knew exactly what I did. Yeah. Without me saying, so I said I looked away.
Because we didn't watch this together. We watched it on our own schedules. We both enjoy shows better that way. But
I think there was like one episode we actually watched together.
Yeah. 5, I think. But so he said I looked away, and then I immediately did a pantomime of exactly what he did. Because I've lived with this dude my entire adult life, and I know how he acts. And this wasn't for a bit. He did this alone, by himself, in a room.
It just made me feel oogie. And I know where it comes from, because I've been a wrestling fan since I was little, and a Lucha
You
Libre
respect
fan,
the Lucha
pretty
Libre
easy.
mask.
Yeah, if you don't want your face to be seen, then I'm not going to look at your face. Now, obviously, Pedro Pascal don't give a shit. I've seen him in plenty of other things. I can do him a Google and just look upon his handsomeness.
In the same way, many lucha performers, if they're like at the fucking store, they don't care.
Sure.
Some do.
Unless they're Ophidian.
Some do. But many don't. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thing that shows how good the show is. Because there's a version of the show that isn't as good, where you didn't do that because you didn't give a shit.
Right. That's an absolutely...
To pull that emotional resonance out of you, this show has to have really bought.
Yeah.
Like, really got your buy-in.
Yeah.
And that's...
I mean, I watched it already.
Yeah. If you know anything about this motherfucker, him having watched it already and not 6 months from now is in and of itself the most glowing, a more glowing review than our meager ability to use words can add to.
I watched it.
Yes, I did just paraphrase the Gettysburg Address.
It is worthy of Lincoln.
But I think that's enough good times.
Let's end on some shit.
I love Rise of Skywalker. I love this movie. Unironically, not as a joke, not as a meme. I had a great fucking time with this movie. It's stupid. It's so dumb.
So, like, and here's... I started to get to this in the beginning. Because, like I said, I went to bed and I woke up the next morning and I was still mad about the movie. And, like... It's the exact reason you were a little iffy on The Last Jedi, because it could have been better. And there are parts of this movie that are just phenomenal. Like, emotionally stirring and just beautifully shot. Amazing acting. And then there's some fucking dumb shit where Emperor Palpatine uses the Force to change his fucking clothes.
Yeah, he has himself. He gets that drip, son. He gets his new Sith drip. You gotta have that. You gotta have your shit on point. God, I love how stupid the climax of this movie is. How stupid and thoroughly unearned the climax of this movie is.
Every time that I think about these scenes that I loved, I'm like, maybe I should watch it again.
And then you think,
and then I remember, I think of a new
Sith
spore.
drip.
No, it's always something new. I will let you know when it stops being something new. Just yesterday I was thinking about this shit, and I'm like, it was pretty cool how, again, spoilers, they had at the end, all the Jedi were saying stuff, and my brain went, Obi-Wan used his old man and young man voices to talk to her. Why?
So did Anakin.
Why?
Because it wasn't about... Because that...
She doesn't know who these people are!
That moment wasn't for Rey. That was for you. That was for me.
Don't.
It was for the
Returned
audience.
gift. Neglected to
Decline.
accept.
I will have. Give. It was for the audience. It was, we got all of these actors who you remember and love from all of these amazing movies, or we got sound clips of them, or people who sound like them, and we to give props to all of the people who have played Jedi throughout the whole series, to thematically get across that this is the final confrontation between the light side and the dark. It wasn't for Rey.
Sure.
It was for you. It was stupid as fuck. Like, I want to make it clear. There is no sentence, any sentence that sounds like I'm defending this movie is me explaining what I think J.J. Abrams was trying to do.
No.
I'm not defending this movie.
Like, this is basically if J.J. Abrams sat down across from me and was like, look, I compiled together a lot of shit. It took me a long time to shit all that feces out. And then I sculpted it into a beautiful rendition exactly of your face. I've baked it. I've painted it. We used scented paints to cover up most of the shit smell. This is for you.
I take a drink. Most. Oh.
And I don't want it, Mr. Abrams. I mean, like, thank you on some sort of level, but
he
no!
He did break out the fucking turtle wax and polish the shit out of that turd, didn't he? I love this movie. I do. I genuinely do. It was a great time, and I understand why JJ did all of the things he did that were dumb as fuck. Because
I think in understanding them, it makes me more upset. But the fucking thing is, he did exactly what I knew he was going to do. He did exactly what J.J. Abrams always fucking does, and I gave him a chance, man.
Is Hollywood's most consistent B+ student. He's not an amazing director. He's not an auteur. Rian Johnson shows that maybe auteur shouldn't be in charge of Star Wars. But he's just going to give you a movie. And it's going to be a good movie. And you're going to have a fun time watching it. But you probably shouldn't think too hard.
Well, like, we went back and we rewatched all the Star Warses.
Yeah, I've seen every Star Wars movie in the last month.
Except for the 2 ancillary films.
Yeah, we haven't seen Rogue One. We've seen all the saga movies.
Yeah. And I like both of those movies, and I want to watch them again. Just they weren't required viewing for the lead up to episode 9.
Once I've seen those again, I think I'm going to have to do an official new Star Wars movie ranking.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it.
Mandalorian might end up at the top of that.
Podcast. I mean, fucking Star Wars holiday special is higher than I remember.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm having a goof. It's only 1 spot higher.
Jedi fell a long way, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm fully kidding because like I wouldn't put this movie at the bottom.
No, it's middle of the pack.
Jedi is.
It is a perfectly acceptable Star Wars.
It's at the bottom of the middle of the pack, but it is there.
It's the middle of the pack. For me, it is a Star War.
It's slightly better than A New Hope for you because I know where that pack sits.
Yeah, basically.
But it's not terrible. It's like Aquaman, right down to she wields the sea.
God, that's...
And it didn't stop was the thing.
No,
it was like it had so many opportunities to not do exactly what it was doing. But fucking JJ in the background turned to me and went, no.
We're going here.
And I'm like, I'm begging you, dude, don't. Just put your shit sculpting tools down and don't. And he's like, I gotta do it, man. You loved Cloverfield. And I'm like, stop!
If you just take out one line of dialogue, that whole sequence gets immediately amazingly better.
If you take out one line of dialogue and replace it with "get cucked, old man," it's a million times better.
No, I wouldn't have been able to withstand meme power of that magnitude. I couldn't have repelled it. I would have been annihilated.
Would have been a better line.
God, I can hear it in Daisy Ridley's voice.
She's making the angry teeth.
Yeah, the teeth! Her big teeth! Oh, shit.
The meme version of this movie is superior to the actual movie.
Oh, boy. But there's actually really cool world building.
Oh, amazing world building.
Like, the idea that the reason Sidious was so powerful is that he absorbed the knowledge and spirit and energy of all the previous Sith Lords as a dark reflection of the Jedi becoming guiding spirits who are their own entities, who have their own, their own personalities. Since Qui-Gon figured it out. Shout out to my man Qui-Gon. But it's like a dark reflection of that. Sidious subsumed his predecessors and took their knowledge and made it and to make himself greater. That's really cool world building.
Sure.
Okay, doing the same thing but with the Jedi though on Rey's side makes it not cool anymore. It makes it stupid.
I mean, it came down to...
Someone suggested that it would have been better, and I agree, if they had like Doctor Who style, like fucking Force Ghost versions of all the other Jedi just like standing in a big semicircle behind Rey,
at the time.
or like a flying V from Mighty Ducks. You're gonna need at least 2 lightsabers to repel lightning of this magnitude.
That's not how lightsabers work.
That's not how the Force works.
I mean, I guess it can be. I guess JJ made the call on that one.
It is now.
Pulled that trigger.
It's a canon movie. It's how the Force works now, Susan.
I don't want to be Susan. Please stop giving me my own shitty
That's
head.
actually another reason why I think Mandalorian's better. The Force is the Force in The Mandalorian in a way it's not since the original trilogy.
Yes, I would agree with that.
The new trilogy and the prequel trilogy, both, and the Clone Wars movies, series, which I have started watching and really like. I, again, am not saying this is a bad decision, but they treat the Force as superpowers.
Well, I mean, the Clone Wars and the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, they're about the fucking Jedi Order.
Yeah, that's when there were like a million Jedi everywhere. And
they were all trained since birth, warrior monks. It makes sense. The sequel trilogy, I guess the Force is just fucking ratcheting up the power level as things goes on.
And maybe that's the problem with bringing balance to the Force. Because, okay, first of all, hello out there, everyone who's watched the Star Wars movies and, didn't see this shit coming. A million Jedi, 2 Sith. All the Jedi very excited about balance being brought to the Force. Do not seem to understand what that means.
Yeah, you don't get what the word balance means, do you, buddy?
But,
because that's currently Force very unbalanced.
Fucked up you have.
Vader made it balanced, all right. 2 Jedi, 2 Sith.
So, I don't know, maybe the Force is bored.
I'm just saying, if you have an equation, if both sides of the equation are the number 0, it's balanced. And they mention it, actually, that's one of the things Rian Johnson really fucking did well in The Last Jedi, is that he mentions that Kylo Ren is absurdly powerful, and so in the way the Force balances the universe, another, someone his opposite number rose to meet him.
Yeah.
That's dope. I don't mind them being more powerful in the sequel trilogy, but the sequel trilogy and the prequel trilogy both treat the Force as a utilitarian thing, as a tool. There's a scene, and it's reflective of thematic things that, reflect his fundamental arrogance and inability to understand his limits. But there's a scene in Attack of the Clones where Anakin Skywalker uses it to hit on a lady. It's whereas in the original trilogy, it is a very mystical thing. It is magic from Conan, not magic from D&D.
Right.
It is fundamentally eldritch and not understandable except by old wizened hermits who live alone.
Well, I think like there is a marked difference between the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy's use of the Force, because in the sequel trilogy, it is magic from D&D. In the prequel trilogy, it's science bugs that live on your skin.
I hate you. Stop mentioning the midichlorians.
Hey, even your pal friend Patine talked about them, so whatever.
I hate them.
Yeah?
Yes!
Do you want to kill them all?
The women and the children, too!
I hate the Force, it gets everywhere.
It does!
Okay, so let's, this has been a delightful rant of a podcast. Mandalorian's great, we know that. You will know that if you don't already. Give me 3 things that you really fucking liked from Resurrection of the Starman. But I forgot the name of it. Rise of Skywalker.
That things that I unironically like and don't think are dumb,
right,
because those necessarily do not overlap.
Right.
There are dumb things I really like in that movie. I really like the world building of why Sith Lords are so much more powerful than your average Jedi. I like that. I'm fucking keeping that. For like games I might DM in the future. I really, how to put this? I really fucking love Kylo Ren's character arc.
Oh my god. One of the few things, the 2 things that this fucking, and I'm sure some people will fight me on the one, but 2 things that this trilogy did not fuck up was the core relationship between Rey and Kylo.
Yeah.
And Luke Skywalker. And y'all can fight me.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a convert. I agree with him. That did Luke right, up to and including his appearance in the final movie, where freed of his earthly fears, he returned. He is the Luke Skywalker that some people wanted him to be in Last Jedi, but he couldn't be because he's not a fucking robot. He's a dude.
Yeah, he was raised too old. Much too old.
He's not a warrior monk. He's just a powerful Force user.
He's a redneck. With a lightsaber.
He really is. So he goes to live in his redneck hut when things get south. But, I really like Rey.
I got sad, so I went to live in a trailer in the woods.
And I really love, aside from the climax, which is genuinely really stupid, but I love it. For the rest of the movie, I love Rey's whole arc. The third movie really brings home and sticks the landing on Rey Skywalker's arc in a way I absolutely love.
That was the 4th day. What upset me was that's how that was your movie line? Okay.
Thing that's dumb that I really love, Sheev. Sheev back, can't stop the Sheev.
Sheev fucks, is that it?
Sheev canonically fucks. after Revenge of the Sith, because how the timeline lines up, those kids that he has murdered, his son, had to have been born well after Revenge of the Sith. So, not just, Palpatine, the senator, who's older, but he's a nice-looking gent.
Yeah.
Ian McDermott wasn't bad-looking when he was younger. No. Fucking wrinkled-ass, toad-looking ass, fucking shriveled-ass, gray-ass Palpatine canonically fucks.
Vader helped me get down on that shit. You fucking what?
You think Vader had acted as his wingman?
Oh, he had to have.
Oh! I want a miniseries about that. I want How I Met Your Mother, Sheev Palpatine edition. Give it now.
Things I liked. As I said, the Rey and Kylo thing. Kylo is, especially on second viewing, one of the most interesting and nuanced characters, and Rey is close to it. Like they're very good.
Really fucking the JJ and Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley and the writers all got together, and with one real stupid moment aside,
I don't think that had much to do with her. Like the execution of that doesn't ruin the arc. It's
Exactly.
its own stupid thing.
It just happened, okay? But that aside, they fucking stuck the landing on those two characters in a way I never thought they could manage. Poe, not so much.
Yeah. Poe Dameron, the same guy from the first movie with flaws in the second movie, and now he's just mad in the third movie.
That's the lesson he learned.
Get mad.
Holdo was a mean asshole for no reason, and that worked out, and everyone loved her, so he's just gonna be a mean asshole now.
Holdo seems like the person nobody really talks about anymore, and I thought that part of the movie was interesting overall, but God, flawed on second viewing. Time, we're already at like 40 minutes. Babu Freak lives in my heart and forever will.
Joy and memory, go away.
No, I'm Babu Freak. And I was so glad that they kept the weird bond thing between Rey and Kylo, like that specific
And
aspect.
they developed it, and they gave it a conclusion.
Yeah, they had that
because it was
cool
fucking
fight.
weird to just show up in Last Jedi, but having it developed and come to a conclusion and be something really cool and a new thing that's important. They came up with a new term for it and everything.
Yeah,
I really fucking liked it.
I did too. I thought
Where
that was cool.
there was cool moments all throughout this movie where they were like using it to their advantage, and they had a lightsaber fight in cross-dimensional force connection, and fuck you, that's awesome.
And it worked. Dude, the cinematography was so great, and the choreography.
Say what you like about JJ. He knows how to shoot a pretty fucking picture.
Yeah,
he hires
that.
good directors of photography.
And Finn. I ended up being pretty happy about Finn.
I love that, and this is a spoiler, that is something that could be better if you saw it live, but it's fucking 45 minutes into the podcast, you're here. I love that they specifically and canonically make Finn Force sensitive.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's all I got. There's so much stuff I love about this movie, and there is so much stuff about this movie that is dumb as shit. Okay, it's stupid, and I'm not going to defend it, but it's so Star Wars.
What if there was a really good movie that at several points in the movie created those Event Horizon-like events that you, 20 years later, can't sleep at 4 a.m. to because you said something fucked up in grade school?
Oh, yeah.
That's what this movie is.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's so much of this movie that I'm like, God, I really love that scene. I'd love to watch this again. Remember how everybody could breathe on the spaceship hull for no reason? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
They were technically in the atmosphere.
A fucking hell world?
Kylo Ren already could breathe there.
Kylo Ren is a Force user.
Shit, you right.
Where did all the druids go? Or come from? Cotton Eye Joe? Say the thing.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
We are all the nerds.
Yeah. Fuck it.